Welcome back to the Making It podcast, and today I'm joined with Khobhi Williams. Now, Khobhi's a character I've grew to know a bit more this year. I first met you this year.
Yep.
And this is our second Making It Moments episode. So you've seen Luca, you've seen us in the studio before with Jamie, but today we're here with Khobhi. Now, Khobhi, introduce yourself. Where are you from and why are you here at Northumbria?
Thank you very much. My name's Khobhi. I'm from South London, near the Wimbledon area, and at the moment I'm doing my history master's degree up in Northumbria. It's my second time here, and I love the city of Newcastle. I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be here, and I'm living my life doing what I love to do.
I love that, brother. I love that. So I play football on Thursdays, 7-a-side, which you listeners will know. And that's how I grew to meet Khobhi.
Yeah.
And Khobhi ran it this year. He ran the intramural leagues. Would you like to discuss that a bit more? So what was your role as an intern?
Yeah.
And what would you do on a Thursday night?
So basic meat and potatoes of the whole situation is that basically me, Luke, who's obviously been on the podcast before, and two other interns, shout out to Finley and Geordie, we had the task of organising the intramural leagues for the students. So basically 5-a-side, 7-a-side, 11-a-side leagues throughout the week, throughout term. And basically we were given the keys to make sure these leagues operated smoothly. And, as you can imagine, with, rowdy 18 to 21-year-old lads playing football, it could be a bit of a handful, but I really, really fell in love with that job. And I'm so lucky and blessed to have had that opportunity, because I think, as we'll discuss, and as you heard, obviously with my degree, I don't come from a sports background, and this is really my dream. I really want to get into football, and I really want to work in football, and being hands-on, like on a grassroots level, is an experience, definitely.
Yeah, and from my perspective, man, it was great to see your face every Thursday. As soon as I got there, I was like, Khobhi, how are you? How are you, Dan? And it was really good, man. I enjoyed you doing it this year. And towards the end of it, we had a cup, and Khobhi designed badges for all of us. He organised a tournament. And how many people were at the final?
There was 124 people.
Exactly. So, making it moments. That's why Khobhi's here. Now, Khobhi wants to make it in sports management. That's right?
Yeah.
So, your Thursday intramurals, is that your first taster of sports management in a way?
That is completely my first taster in sports management.
So, what I will say is, what would you say are some of your key takeaways from running the intramural leagues at Northumbria that you can apply to your sports management?
That's a really good question. Transparency is key. Transparency is so key. I think when you're operating around a sport, I look at it as also operating around an event. And you have to understand that you're dealing with people, and you have to treat people with respect and transparency. At the end of the day, right, don't beat around the bush. I think at the end of the day, everybody knows why they're here. They want to play football, and they want to get on the pitch, and they want to have a good time. You need to make sure that when problems arise, that you can get to the bottom of it and do it in a fair way. And that's what I understood from the first day that I walked in there. I think sometimes, in an environment like sport, because of the competitiveness and because of the energy that is, present there, it can be intimidating for some people. But for me, I knew walking in that, look, I love going to the footy. I love the energy and the atmosphere of the crowd. And I took going into intramural in the most cheesiest way ever. I took it as going into, a stadium, whether that's like a Wembley or St. James's Park, just in a cold suburban Newcastle. I had to take it with that kind of same respect, because if I didn't take it with that kind of respect and I just looked at you guys as students, then there is a possibility that some of you lads wouldn't come back. So I thought, look, from day dot, I'm going to just talk to you guys and talk to you as people, as human beings.
Yeah, I think a really interesting thing there is you didn't go, making sure that I managed my time correctly, or making sure that I was, organising it well, or maybe something to do with like writing down the fixtures. You didn't really think of you didn't. Yes, transparency in a way is a skill, but you didn't say, it was a certain skill I used when I was doing this or that, and that's what I like. The fact you went for transparency, it shows, and this goes for a lot of things. I spoke about it on this week's episode. For those listeners who have listened, we can talk about all these different things, like these things you can learn or read about, or you can search online, but at the end of the day, it's like what you say, it's that transparency, it's being authentic, it's being honest with the lads who you're running it with. 100%. People are going to have issues like, Khobhi, why are we always on at 9 p.m? Or that's not personal from me. Or Khobhi, like, I want to do this with this game or this and that, but you just be honest. You're not going to lie. You're not going to, put a mask on. You were yourself, and I could evidently see that.
Yeah.
And bro, that's going to take you a long way. So something I really want to dive into.
100%.
So you want to get into sports management, yeah?
Yes.
But you've got a degree in history, and you're doing a master's in history.
Yeah.
Now, as me and you both agreed off camera, that's quite unorthodox.
Very unorthodox.
Now, tell me how you are going to then take your master's degree in history and go into the sporting world. What is that journey like for you?
Right. So I think the way that my brain works is a bit different. I'm not looking at the degree as just, the poster, like, okay, I've got this degree, so that's going to progress me in that direction. Because I knew that I came from a background academically where the options are so vast. Coming from a history background, it's not just like you go into the degree and then everyone who comes out of it is just like Indiana Jones. It doesn't work like that. We're not all just in a museum somewhere or in a library somewhere twiddling books. I knew that I didn't want that for myself, but I also understood that that's how I see the world. I see the world through the stories of the past. And the thing is that like history at the end of the day is about understanding human nature. So I understood going into it that I can really present my ideas through that degree incredibly well. But at the end of the day, right, I believe that the skills that you get from history and for pardon the pun, the stories that you get from history, you can transfer them in so many ways to football or to sport in general, because at the end of the day, any sport, it's about that camaraderie and it's about that community, and it's about, honouring that community and creating memories. Look, even the last week, both of us being in Newcastle, we went to the celebrations for the trophy parade. To see 300,000 people come out into town, right, and to be around that environment where, men, women, children of all ages, right, are so raucous, loud, but there's so much joy in the air. Right? It
wasn't dangerous. It was a safe enjoyment, a safe rowdiness, a safe raucous energy.
Yeah. That story and seeing that is something that I'm going to remember forever, and I'm not even a Newcastle fan. And what I see and what I feel is that having an understanding of the past and having an understanding of what motivates people to get into sport and what motivates people to actually go to a football game, or to get that season ticket, or to go on that away trip. That is something that I'm so fascinated by, and I think that through that understanding and through that, through that research and through that lens of understanding, let's say, the consumer, right? I want to get into any football club, barring one. I'm not going to expose them here, but barring one, I want to get into any football club or any footballing governing body, and I want to bring my outlook to see if we can make changes to the game.
I love that, man. And so it's almost like through doing history, through doing a master's in history, taking that step further, you've got that lens where you've looked at even things that don't apply to sport, apply to football, looking into how things worked in the past and how they are now.
Yeah.
You can apply that to football. Obviously, there's history in football, so obviously your generic route would be do a sports management degree or sports coaching or anything related to sport.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to get the certain skills that apply to sports management, but from the route you're coming in, I guess that's a generic path. You're coming through at your angle.
Yeah.
And that's good, man. That's beautiful. And it's interesting because I love the fact that you want to take your own angle on it, and you're building this history idea, this history lens, as you say yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an unorthodox way of doing it, and it's a different way of doing it, but it's your way of doing it.
100%.
Now, how long have you known you've wanted to do this? When did you realise you wanted to direct yourself on your own path towards sports management?
I probably would say for about the last 2.5, 3 years. I realised, I think, at the end of my undergrad course that I was doing a couple of jobs in events at uni. So I was a part of a community initiative called the Black Leaders Project that went on for a couple of years at Northumbria Uni.
The what project, sorry?
The Black Leaders Project.
Yeah.
So it was for Afro-Caribbean students, kind of boosting representation. So we did a couple of events for Black History Month, and I was like the chair of that whole initiative for that time, and I learned a lot of lessons about, talking to stakeholders and trying to organize things and trying to talk to anyone to try and, when it comes to possible students who want to be involved in this. I learned a lot of lessons, and it wasn't necessarily the easiest job, and I wish I could put more time into it, but from that moment I've realized, I can definitely do something in the community. That's one thing. And then I think that just kind of festered into my love of the game more, because at this time, I'm an avid AFC Wimbledon supporter. So
I might expose a team he doesn't want to work for.
So I love AFC Wimbledon, and the thing is that, like, living up in the northeast for that many years, you don't get to go to that many games. You don't get to go to many home games. You don't get to go to many away games either, because even though there's many northern teams, a lot of them are out of the way of the northeast. So whenever I could get the chance to go, I'd go. And being at them away games and being around the fans, feeling like he was at home, even if he was in a different town, even if he was in a Hartlepool or Sunderland, or like a Carlisle or Doncaster, you love being there. And I thought to myself, look, I see this passion, and I see that across the country, in fact around the world, right? People take time out of their week, people take time out of their year, right? People put money into the football team that they support. It would be amazing to be a part of that story for a club, whether that's League 2, National League, or all the way up to Prem, right? And I thought to myself, through what I was able to do in this little project, let me go out and see how I can get a job in there. So even like when I graduated, I was sending off CVs, and like I was designing them and tailoring them to football clubs in my area. So it was just funny. So like if I had like Crystal Palace, like I'd get my CV designed, right, and then I'll change the colours of like certain headers and borders to like blue and like blue and red.
I love that.
And I'll just do that for all the clubs in London, and like and it turns out that you need to do a bit more than that to actually try and get an interview.
Not just change the colours of the CV.
Yeah.
I really like what you're saying. I love just like wanting to kind of, that's someone's special time in the week.
Yeah.
For me, Thursday 7-a-side playing this year, I know for me and my mates, that's a big thing for us. We really enjoy doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We pay our 60 quid for the year, and it's one of our big things. And for you to want to be the director of that, to bring that sort of joy to someone is a nice thing. So in terms of sports management, to be honest, all I really know is what it says on the tin, really. You're kind of managing a sports sort of environment, an event, a community, as you say. But what sort of role can you see yourself having in sports management? Let's say you're at a club. What sort of role would you have at that club?
You see, I think what I'm gravitated towards really is, I think probably two areas. I definitely feel like I can do good in marketing. I think from the intramural league stuff that I really just had a good grasp of that. I just kind of used what tools I had around me and took them ideas and thought, right, let's try and build engagement, because I thought that's important. I thought, like, these lads have committed to this league for the last 6 months or so, and I was thinking to myself that I've learned so much about these guys. I've learned so much about their stories and their motivations for playing the game, and their and their banter and their humor. And I thought, right, it's great that they're showing up, but what's gonna really excite them about this cup? And I just thought we got to make this a real competition. So we had 12 teams, and we had a very tight schedule. And you know, when it came down to it, it was trying to figure out how we can do a cup. So in like about a 3-week period, with an uneven amount of teams for a competition. So I thought, right, if I copy the current Champions League format, right, have a bit of a league system, use the actual league as a bracket to see who would advance in the cup, and then see who goes into the playoffs to get into the actual competition, then that can break it down in them weeks. And when we got to it, like, I thought, okay, we got that first part done. So the practicality of it, of figuring out how we're going to make this work, that's done. Now here's all the extra bells and whistles. So that's when I decided, right, one of the teams had a kit. And that's Real Madrid. Shout out to Real Madrid. And they had a kit already, and they had a badge, and I thought, that's amazing. That's nice, you know? I thought, great, they're really committing to this. So I looked at the other teams, and I thought they had all these nice names, you know? They had all these great names, like Come Time With Me. That's your team.
Come on, shout out Sid for that, mate.
We also got Is Your Mother Well, who won the cup. I don't know. we had Stalacticos, and we had Penalty and Pints, and we had all these teams with all these names, proper kind of uni team names. And I thought, right, I've got a good base. Let's make these badges. So then basically, I just kind of took it from the name. I just took it from the namesake. I thought, right, go on Canva. Let's just make a design up. I only needed like an afternoon, maybe 2 afternoons to do that, and then boom, made the bracket, made everything myself on Canva, just tweaked the little things here and there, popped it on, and then everybody just kind of fell in love with it. And I was like, oh, this is great. So then when the competition came along, we actually started having good games. And then when we got to the actual final, we had to put the semis and the final in one day. So I thought, okay, let's make it a big deal. This is the final four. And I got all the team badges up, and I got all them advertised, and I was like, here we are. These are the final four. They're playing for the cup. And I just put on the top, tell your friends. And I just said, look, guys, let your friends know about it. And if they're free on a Thursday, come out, watch some good football. And to see 124 people show up, I was just like, I was a bit shocked.
He knows that because he had a little clicker. He's counting everyone that turned up.
I was standing by the gate, clicking everybody coming in. And like I think one team brought about 50 people. I just don't know who has that many friends who wants to come out on a Thursday night, you know, in March, like to watch footy in like the middle of nowhere, pretty much. I was like, you know what? Shout out to them. That was Penalty and Pints. So shout out to them because they really brought so many mates out for that game. And they got to the final. Unfortunately, they lost, but it was really fun. And them games were really entertaining. They were really like, there was a lot of it. I felt the adrenaline of actually watching them games.
Bro, I was playing, and when we showed up, unfortunately we were late because of our bus. That didn't really help us, but we got there was a crowd, and we had to jump straight into the semi-final. And yeah, I felt the energy that day. I felt it, and you know, obviously that comes from people turning up and people wanting to be there, but you played your role in creating that energy. I think it might have been my friend Ollie who suggested the Champions League format. I don't know. I feel like you and him were kind of stood, and I think he suggested it. Yeah, so shout out Ollie, because I definitely know he'll be listening.
Thank you.
So marketing. So creating a community, creating an environment, creating an event, creating a reason for people to be there, and that's what you creating all those badges did. Now, so is there anything else which applies to your sports management role which you want to get into, or is marketing the kind of the key thing you want to get into, or is there more to that?
I think there's more to that. I think there's the marketing, but I also think it's kind of the event side of it as well. Kind of trying to make sure that when it comes to a big game, when it comes to a league game, like for a big football team, for a professional club, how can we make that event as exciting and as engaging for the fans? It's something that like my brain's a bit obsessed about. You know, I kind of, it's a bit weird, but I'll be honest. Like there are times where I'm actually watching, even like game intros for all the major clubs, like to see what they're doing, whether that's a Champions League, walkout for like Aston Villa or like Newcastle, or whether that's like a championship walkout for like Norwich City or Millwall. I'm like watching each and every single little detail to see, right, well, if they do this, would that bring more of that kind of
energy
to the ground?
Yeah, man. When I'm at the City ground, something big is Tifus.
Yeah.
Bro, Forest are great with it, and when
Yeah.
I come to the ground and I see that Forest are magic, it's just like wow. Like,
Yeah.
I'm ready for it. So it's those sort of, you're geeking out over those sort of details.
I geek out of those little details because like they mean so much. So like with Wimbledon, for example, we like one thing that's important for us is that we've got at Plough Lane, we've got a load of flags documenting where all the supporters are from. That's basically at every single football ground, but they're so viscerally in your face because it's not a big stadium, and they're all around like East Stand, West Stand, South Stand as well, and it's just like I think that they were curated to be put there by design. And although we don't have like tifos, I would definitely love tifos at our stadium if we get up the league for sure, because I think that would be really special for a club like Wimbledon with the history that we've got. But like you feel that atmosphere, and you know there's a very good family environment there, but it still feels like a club that, you know, they're gonna fight for every single point, and we ingrain that at the stadium on its own. You know, we know that, you know, for our ground it's our spiritual home that was stolen away from us by commercialism, by franchising. This is really giving away the club I'm not gonna ever work for. But like the thing is that like, for example, there's a pair of gates that was at the old Plough Lane that say "One ball till I die," and we were able to find them gates all these years later, about I think 20 years after Plough Lane, the original Plough Lane, got knocked down, and we've restored them and we put them in a new Plough Lane. So when you're walking in to the Kappa stand, which is like the main big stand on, I think the on like the East Stand or the West Stand, you can walk through and you can see them gates when you're walking into the ground and walking to your seat. So them types of details matter because if you know, a stadium tells a story, but also like, you know, when you can curate them little things, it makes a massive difference. So I want to be able to work at a club where because I know my attention to detail is very strong. So it's like, it's learning about that through learning the history and making sure that I would love to be able to be involved in like a football kit, or when it comes to like a community event, you know, when it comes to trying to get legends to come back, or when it comes to like trying to do initiatives for getting more fans engaged into like women's football, for example. Like, I have ideas and I want to bring them forward because I feel like although football in this country at a commercial level is so high, I think it can be higher, and that's by engaging with fans more, and it's by making sure that their voice is heard.
Bro, I love that, man. Now, talking about ideas.
Yeah.
So you're doing your master's project right now, I believe.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Now, tell the listeners about what you're doing that on. Obviously, I know. And even after you telling me, I still don't fully know. I'm interested because I still want to know more.
Right.
So tell the listeners about your project you got going on right now.
So I got to give a bit of context before I do that. So in my undergrad, I did a lot of work on the Troubles in Northern Ireland, which is basically the sectarian conflict that happened throughout the 70s all the way to the 90s. And it was between like Protestants and Catholics there. And I really enjoyed learning about that. I had a really good tutor there at uni. His name's called Connell, and I've had a relationship with him for a very long time, and he's my personal tutor now. And you know, when I left uni, I engaged with him. I was telling him I was coming back, and I basically engaged with him. I was like, I want to try something a bit different, and I was thinking about football rivalries for a long time. I think everybody kind of gets a bit enamored by them, and one that really took my interest was obviously the Old Firm. And what I wanted to look at, instead of like just looking at a normal war, like looking at a World War II or looking at a civil war somewhere, I wanted to look at the dynamics of warfare, but in a microcosm, and that is football. So what I'm currently doing is that I'm currently analysing Scottish policy from the late 90s to about the mid 2010s on how they've tried to deal with sectarianism. A lot of their policy has been directed at football, specifically with the Old Firm.
What is sectarianism?
So sectarianism is basically prejudice between, mainly in this context, religious groups. So this is basically between Protestants and Catholics. There's a massive Catholic minority in Scotland, specifically in like the Glasgow area, and historically they've been discriminated against by Protestants in Scotland. And basically I'd say it like this, football clubs became symbols of these allegiances. So Celtic, their allegiance was with the Irish Catholic community, and then Rangers kind of adopted this Ulster Protestant identity, and that's become what we know now as the Old Firm. So when you're seeing Irish flags and you're seeing British flags getting waved in them games, like a lot of it is very political. And the problem is that it can boil over, and there's been historic moments where it has boiled over, where people have been injured and people have actually died because of this game, because of just their affiliation to either club. And basically, from my understanding of it, I've seen, from my understanding, that there's a lot of passion to this game, but that rawness can cause a lot of problems, and it can make life pretty dangerous for some people historically. What my gist on what my take on this is that I want to look at how really government policy has done a chunk to try and address this issue over the last 20 years, right? Because before this, it wasn't really an issue that had a real name. They didn't really want to class it in the same light as what was happening in Northern Ireland, because the dynamics in Scotland were different. They weren't in wartime per se. So I wanted to look at it from a perspective of, okay, right, but there is still an issue here, because football matters a lot in that country, and it matters anywhere. When you see football violence happening, it does mar the name of football. And the thing is that what I've seen is that a lot of the time when government gets involved and they try and put policy in place for football fans, it can get really it can be really imbalanced, and there's a very massive top-down perspective where they don't really understand the experience of the fans. They kind of paint them all with one brush. So if you have troublemakers at your club, even if you go with your family and you're not involved in that, you want to go and watch a game of football, and you love the competitiveness, but you don't want to be a part of the bigotry that can be involved, the homophobia that can be involved in Scotland, the sectarianism that can be involved. When you get painted by the same brush, because a footballing governing body or an authority doesn't really understand how or what football means for the fans, that's something that I want to critique. And I want to look at how policy has succeeded and how policy has failed, and I want to look at that with in mind with the supporters as a priority, as a major stakeholder of this. So when I'm doing my research, I'm looking at government bills, I'm looking at committee letters, I'm looking at statements from Rangers and Celtic, and things that the Scottish FA have said. But on top of that, I'm actually also looking at things that are grassroots for the fans, independent of their football club. So whether that's an independent news publication like Celtic News for Celtic, or I think it's called Bear News for Rangers. They got certain fanzines and they got certain memorabilia, looking at pictures of games with banners and everything like that. And look, I'm going to show you an example right now of something that I've been researching with.
Go on, do it.
So I never thought I'd be able to do this, right, as a football fan or historian, but I'm actually getting the chance to use these as evidence, as primary sources for my dissertation.
For those listening, Khobhi's currently taking something out of an envelope.
Yeah, I've got
and it's Celtic match day programs.
I'm literally going through Celtic match day programs. I'm getting Rangers ones as well in the post, But like,
So what years are these from?
this is like 2001. I think this is like from 2006. Got Aidan McGeady in the front.
Where'd you get these from? eBay.
No, I think there's like a certain website that just sells them. I've got a couple from eBay.
2010.
But like there was just like it's not been easy to try and find all of them. So if any of your viewers have a Celtic or a Rangers, like an old firm match day program between the years 1999 to about 2015, just let me know.
Let us know. So you've bought these programs, and
Yeah.
it's obviously to do with this project, and you're looking into Celtic,
Yeah.
obviously with the Celtic Rangers. Now, when you're looking in these programs, what are you looking for?
Right. So when I'm looking in these programs, basically I'm looking for anything to do with Celtic's history, but I'm also looking at anything to do with sectarianism, with how the club talk about. I think this is a good example. This big one here. Also, I have to say, right, I might have to get into like collecting like match day programs, because this is absolutely like a time capsule. Look at like I don't think you'll be able to see this, but like look at that. They were selling in 2001. They were selling Celtic fan PCs.
Have a look at this. For those watching,
Unbelievable.
Celtic fan PCs is what they used to sell. So if you can find yourself one of them, or if you got one, do let us know. £849 including VAT.
Aye.
Absolute bargain. Now I'd love to know what was on there as a Celtic fan.
But like honestly, you go and see like advertisements like this, for example. So this was when government policy was getting massive on this. These advertisements were like everywhere, where they were asking out for fans who could actually come up with ideas to deal with the sectarianism problem. So this is an example of how organisations like Centre for Sectarianism, for example, were trying to get the fans involved to see what kind of initiatives can come in place. So I want to analyse things like this that are in matchday programs that are supposed to be given to fans, because a fan back in 2001, before this game, would have read this and thought, well, you know what? Maybe I've got an idea. So it's like, this is an example of, policy that is positive and seeing the results of that, But even like certain things like, just interviews with players. So like interviews with players like this and, looking at how they tell their story. That's something that's really important to see how this is what the club is officially saying. This is what fans are reading, right? And seeing the positives and also the negatives of that, where the gaps can be, what kind of biases are in place, and also seeing how they deal with this problem over time. That's something that I think is so important, and it is literally the nerdiest thing, but it is the most exciting thing that I get to do.
So are you looking for solutions to deal with?
Not necessarily, no. I'm not looking for solutions. I'm trying to tell the story of how the state or how the football clubs have actually been trying to do that.
So you're interested in what other people have done, what the government have done to kind of what their solutions are,
and how fans have reacted to them. To understand fan football culture and to understand football, to understand football supporters as as a political class in their own right. Especially when you see stuff going on like the European Super League. I think people don't take into consideration sometimes that the fans have a voice, and the fans, when they speak, people can listen, and it's giving them a spotlight as well.
Okay, so you're looking at all this information and you're looking at, how they dealt with the fans, have they not given the fans a voice?
Yeah.
Because as you say, you want to give spectators a level playing field.
Yep.
You want to make it more accessible for
Mhm.
fans in sport. So you kind of looking for ways that people may have gone wrong with this, and then you're looking for ways that they may have gone right, and then you can apply that to your own role in sports management.
100%. So I want to basically look at the fact that I don't think it's it's not black and white, right? I think there are things that are in place, and I'm going to get to go to Glasgow in about a week.
Yeah, I was about to mention that, your trip to Glasgow. So when you go to Glasgow, what are you looking for? There's similar certain things.
I'm gonna
Why Glasgow?
So obviously that's where Celtic and Rangers are, right? So I want to be immersed in the city to see what it's like. I've never been to Glasgow, and I can't afford to go to an Old Firm game because I don't have an arm and a leg to sell to go there. But I want to be around the city to see how people live there, and I want to be able to talk to people to actually see what their perspectives are, because at the end of the day, I can look at it from here in England, right, and watch the games and see the highlights and have my preconceived notions. But like a tutor once said, I think a couple of weeks ago, that, you know, if you ever get the chance to go to the place that you're researching, just go, because it helps broaden that perspective. And that's why I'm so excited to go to Glasgow, because I want to see the city for what it is from my own eyes, and I want to do the research, and I want to go to these archives, and I'm going to get to go on the stadium tours of both Celtic and Rangers, and I'm going to get to talk to people whilst I'm there to see what the environment, what it's like there. You know, how does sectarianism work in a city like Glasgow? Like, is it the same as it used to be, you know, back in the 80s or the 90s during the Troubles, or is it different, you know? And are there things that are misunderstood about either club or both clubs or the city of Glasgow as a whole? Because I think a lot of people want to kind of look at, you know, both of these clubs as, oh, well, you know, they're crazy, you know, they just hate each other. They hate each other and they don't get along, and it's like, you know, it's like a war zone there on that day. And maybe for that game it is, but, you know, life is outside them 90 minutes. So how does it work over there for a lot of people? You know, that's what I want to understand when going to Glasgow. And I know I only have 4 days to try and figure that out, but you gotta get what you can get in these times. And I hope they get back there before my degree ends. But I'm so excited to present this, because literally my work ethic and what I think about on a daily is about this stuff.
Yeah, man, it's a very interesting project. It's something I never would have thought about. You know, as a fan, I've seen, you know, games, and I've seen things like tifos. I've seen the small details. I've seen rivalries, and you know, I've never really thought about, you know, the small details. You know, what makes that, what can be kind of solved to maybe sort out maybe fights outside the stadium, or like you say, that the politics, and maybe reducing that so it's healthy, it's safe for the fans. So I really like this. Now, you told me before, that after you left college, you had 2 years before you came to uni, before you progressed, and now you are where you are now. Now, would you like to speak to the listeners about the full-time job that you had at that time, and how doing that made you realise you didn't want to do that for the rest of your life, and why you are now doing something which is your journey? You know, that it's part of your journey, but it didn't feel like it was in a way. It wasn't real to you. So what was it about that job? And, you know, yeah,
so I left uni. I left with my degree in 2022.
Left uni or college?
Uni. So I finished uni 2022.
Oh, so it was after uni you had a couple of years, and then you came back for your masters.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've left uni 2022, graduated. I wanted to get into work. I didn't really want to go and do my masters. I just wanted to get into work, because I've been in uni for 4 years. And
why 4?
Because I did a foundation year.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did a foundation year and I did my course, and I built a life up here, yes, but I wanted the next step, and I wanted to get into work. And naively, I thought it would just be very easy to do that. So when I left uni and I'd done everything, I thought, look, I've got a degree. I'm going to just put out my CV and I'll be fine. And I wanted to get a job, just, you know, I wanted to get a job, but I didn't fully know what that direction was going to be yet. I just understood that it would be fun to work in sport. It would be fun to work in football, because I love it. You know, I love watching sport. It doesn't have to also just be football. It can be anything. But I love being around that and understanding it more. So I wanted to get there, but it was hard to get into the industry. So I thought, okay, well, fast forward 6 to 8 months. I'm like, I don't have any money now. My student loan's running out. It's bleeding dry. I need to figure out something. So I just thought, right, at this moment, I'll take anything, and just to get me by, just need anything. So I did a little course to help me get into a job at Battersea Power Station.
What course?
It was like a retail course. Yeah. It was a very humbling experience, because, you know, I was in there with people who, you know, they didn't go to uni. I was like probably one of the only people there who'd gone to uni, and, you know, it's just everybody just trying to find jobs through, you know, the job centre, just, you know, trying to get by. And you're doing like a level 1, level 2, like retail and hospitality course after doing a 4-year degree. It's humbling, to say the least. But I was like, look, I'm just gonna take it seriously, do my job, and then get something out of this. And I just wanted to get a job. I just wanted to feel useful, right? Because I was just at home not doing much. I got a job at a luxury retail brand, and the thing is that I was excited for work there. I kind of convinced myself that I'll enjoy this, to get by, and it could be fun because it's in this new development and it's going to be really nice. And then, it was my first job full time. I'd worked retail before. I thought this is going to be easy, piece of cake. But the difference between working 16 or 20 hours to 40 hours is major. That first full-time job, it's, it consumes you. And if you don't enjoy it, you hate going to work, right? And that's what happened to me, unfortunately. It was a nice building, nice going into work, but I knew I just didn't like what I did.
Didn't feel part of you. It wasn't your thing.
It wasn't my thing, and it didn't reflect my background, because I'm not that fussed about luxury retail, but I just needed a job. And I thought to myself, right, you know what? I can't stay here. I need to figure out a plan. So I thought, I'm going to go back to uni. And at the time, I felt like, this is not what I want to do. Like, this is not the step I wanted to take. I'm falling behind. And I thought, but it's better than this. And I'm striving and I'm working as hard as I can now to make sure that I don't take that step back. Because at the end of the day, I've done the work. And I keep on doing the work. And I'm going to keep on doing it after I finish. To make sure that I get to that point where I can look at myself and I can wake up in the morning and feel like, oh, I get to do something that I enjoy every day. I have the privilege to get to do something that I enjoy every day. And I don't take that for granted for anybody who doesn't have that privilege. But I just want to make sure that I get there for myself and my family. And that is my goal. And I'm relentless. I'm going to get there. No matter how long it takes, I'm going to get there. And, I'm excited for that journey. And this is why I'm enjoying life right now. Because I think for many years before, where I was trying to figure out stuff, and I was trying to figure out what I've got to do and how I've got to make my place in the world and what I have to achieve by a certain time. I think I've reached a point now in my life where I realized you got to step back and realize that you're living life. You're not planning life, you're living it. So go out there and live. And, not everything's about work. I realize something that's so important now. It's more important to me than even this degree, actually. And it's this. Look, you'll have all the time in the world to work. You won't have enough time to live. And that's why I make sure that balance in my life is important. So anything that I try and do, I'm being conscious about my family. I'm being conscious about my own health and my community and the little things that make my life good. And the thing is that it just turns out a job takes so much of your time. So you got to make sure that what you're doing is something that you enjoy.
Bro, that last minute or two, bro,
yeah.
That was beautiful, man.
It's alright.
I got to shake your hand for that, man. And this is what you just said there was very aligned with what me and Jamie talk about on this podcast. Doing things for you, your journey, what feels real to you, what's authentic to you. And bro, I completely agree, man. I want to spend my life doing a job which I wake up and I love and I want to do. I think you've touched on it a lot in this podcast, but what's your reason why? What's your reason why you want to do all this? If you could wrap it up into one sentence, you kind of did it there really, but if you had to put it into one sentence, what's your reason why, Khobhi, for living on this earth, bro?
Ooh, that's a good question. I want to make this world a better place for the next person who takes it when I leave. That's it. I don't really care about how people perceive me. The only thing that I care about is that if somebody down the road can think back at their own life and think, oh, you know what? I really enjoyed being a part of that league when I was at college or when I was at uni, Don't know why I became American there, but but something as little as that, if that can bring a bit of joy to their life, that's what's important to me. The money doesn't matter, right? The recognition, you know, I realized that at this point, I don't need to have statues or massive things or massive emblems or have fame. I don't need that, right? I feel like I have the capabilities to go and get that if I wanted to, but I don't want that. You know, at the end of the day, I want to make my family proud, and I want to make life better for people, because I came from a humble upbringing, growing up in a council estate with educated parents who, you know, are immigrants. They worked really hard to give me and my sister the life that we have now. So I understand very deeply the importance of giving back to my community and making sure that I can make them proud, make myself proud a bit, but at the end of the day, just go out there and make things better for the circumstances that are currently around us, you know, because I see the potential, but I want to make sure that that is met. That takes work, and I'm going to make sure that I do it.
Bro, that's beautiful. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to say at all, Khobhi? I think you've touched on a lot there. You don't have to, man, but if there was just something that you were itching to say, you've got a chance.
Yeah, it's a good one.
There doesn't have to be anything, man. You've touched on a lot.
I'll say this to anyone. To anyone who's like on this journey right now, and they're really grinding it out, and you know, it's getting to them. You know, to anyone who's really questioning that and doubting their ability, just take a step back, right, and really ask yourself this: if a 12-year-old me could look at me now and look at what I'm doing now, would he be proud of that? And if the answer is yes, keep on doing it. If you're not sure, you know, think about what you can do and think about what you've been able to do. Because I don't think it's all a black and white thing. There's always things that we can improve on. But if you're committed in this journey of growth, just know that I feel like you're doing the right thing. I feel like you're doing the right thing. I might not know you, but if you're committed to this, just know you're doing enough, and be kind to yourself, and that's all love, man.
That's beautiful, man. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Khobhi. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. That was Khobhi's Making It Moments. Thank you very much, brother. Take care, everybody.